All right, welcome. If you're coming across these videos, my goal with videos is to show the truth. The truth has been lied to. Our history has been manipulated heavily. What we believe is not what we think. Like, for instance, that's Grand Mesa over there, and that is probably 10-15 miles, and according to the curvature data, that should be below the horizon. But but anyway, my goal with these videos is just to show you nature and the outdoors and the wilderness, so you're not afraid of it. But my question posed this morning is, if all of a sudden you see people disappearing, and what I've been shown is it's not going to be very many. In the days of Noah, there were 8 people out of hundreds of thousands of people that were saved. And in the days of Noah, there were, and it also alludes to that, the Revelation, in the book of Revelation, it alludes to the days of Noah. So in other words, very few people are going to make it. And that's why I've been hearing from prophet after prophet after prophet that this person was left behind or that person was left behind. And it was because they weren't doing God's work. They weren't letting people know about God. And I know it's easier said than done. I just moved to a new job and trying to learn the culture and what is and isn't allowed. Sorry, I just went running, so but people will be left behind. If you're in a fornicating, adulterous relationship, that means if you're sleeping with someone and you think nothing of getting married, or if you're sleeping with someone and you're not married to them, that's called fornication, and it's called adultery if they're already with someone else. Like if they're a husband or wife of someone else and they come and sleep with you, that's wrong. And also, I just learned this, that when we get into marriage, it's not just a fleshly marriage, especially if you do it under Yahuwah or Yahweh, who is God the Father. But if you do it under Him and commit in every way to Him, then your marriage is also of the Spirit. And when you divorce someone and go after someone else, you're basically it's called the book of Nazarene. It's also it's, in other words, Nazarene is Nazarene. But basically, if you sleep with someone else that's not your original partner, you're basically having an adulterous relationship against the Spirit. And so, in other words, you're breaking. And there is one place in the Bible where it's like, well, I mean, Moses allowed divorce. However, he didn't really allow you to be remarried. I mean, in certain instances, he did. Like, there's one where if you're in a relationship and the other person is not a Christian or doesn't believe what you do, then it's kind of, but for the most part, I mean, it's flat out, don't do this. You cannot get divorced and remarried, is what it says. And so, I've struggled with this too, because it's like I'm trying to date, and it's like, it's very hard to find a person that hasn't already been married. And it's like, okay, well, if they're in a relationship and they're being abused and whatever, is that allowed? I mean, we're supposed to, when we're in a marriage, we're supposed to, basically the woman is to give their body to the man and vice versa. And also it says the guy is supposed to treat the woman like he does the church. And the church is a group of people. It's not a building, it's a church. It's not a building, it's a bunch of people. But if you're in a relationship and he's beating the poop out of you, or she's beating the poop out of you and treating you like crap and demanding that you treat her like queen, that's not a good relationship, and yes, you should leave. But yeah, I mean, so divorce, yeah, I would say divorce is limited, but that's not where I'm getting off on a sidetrack. But my goal today is like if the rapture happened, which I think very few people will leave, I think out of several 100,000, there'll be like 5 that'll leave. So you will see people leave. I think what will happen is people will know it. There'll be a major shift in like what you're feeling. People will turn on you. I mean, it clearly says in Revelation and other books that your friend will become your foe. It says that everyone will turn on each other, and God's hand will be lifted off. But the tribulation, if my dreams have been accurate, are it's already here. I had two dreams last year. One was as I was in a downtown city environment, and there was like this water that was coming up onto my legs, and like it was shifting, and I was like, the tribulation, it's here, it's here, it's here. And people didn't believe me and kept going. And I think there was another dream, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. I have my book of dreams, but tribulation's already here. But my question to you is, how do you survive if you've been left behind? It's like, okay, well, I thought I was going home. It's like you always prepare for what may come. You always prepare for, okay, well, if I don't get taken, then what? Like I thought I was, well, I knew that I was on the bubble, but this past week I went off because I didn't like the situation I was in and went against God, and he clearly showed me that I was not living the right way, and I was put where I am for a reason. And I was woken up by a dream because I was left behind. I was on a boat, and the time came and I was left behind. Or I felt it's like, oh, it's here. And then I could feel that something had happened. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is not good, because I was left behind. And I knew that. I knew in my spirit, like, yep, I've been left. So that shook me and woke me up. I got immediately on my knees. I was like, okay, I need to stop going against this. And I begged for forgiveness and turned back to God. And then when I went back to sleep, I had another dream. And this time I had another rapture dream. And God was saying, okay, I've corrected your situation. And I was raptured at that point. So even if you think that you're going to heaven, you may not be. So, I mean, it's like what you should be doing right now is getting everything you can to get through what's coming. And if you think you're going to live in your house or whatever, you may be running out of your house in whatever form of transportation you have. Your car, by the way, and I've been shown prophetically and by many, many prophets that, let's see, the red state, which everyone knows, it has a great, we like their food, and it comes in little chopsticks and stuff. You know where I'm going with this. And the other one, how can I describe the other one? The other one is above them. If you look at their countries, they're on the same continent. And the other one is that great big country over the top of it, who is currently attacking another country was a blue, yellow, and white flag, or is there just a blue and yellow? But yeah, they're attacking them. It starts with UK, or the country they're attacking, it starts with UK. But I've been shown that they will attack here. A lot of people think that this could never happen. There's a whole lot of people that have flooded our southern boundary line. And if you took the time to research, you would find out that most of them are fighting age, that most of them are male, and they're flooded across our border. And they're just waiting for the switch to be flipped. So they're already here, and they're already waiting for they already have their orders. They're going to attack our grid system. They're going to make it shut down. But that's not the only threat that you'll have in the tribulation period. You'll also have, they've been hiding giants, but there are giants hidden underground in underground bases. And I'm not quite sure where they all are. There's one that may be under that. That big thing is called Grand Mesa, and I've seen documents that there may be something under there. But I'm not a conspiracy theorist. What I've done is I've researched the heck out of this, and I'm only showing you what I have found. And I don't believe something. You have to show me like major amounts of evidence. And this has been confirmed. This has been like, okay, well, that makes sense. But there are giants underground, because in the book of Enoch, it's clearly said that the angels came down and slept with women, and it created giants. The giants never left. The giants were always here. If you look at, let's see, look up Canaanite and Amorite and the Hittites. I think it's Hittites. But yeah, Amorites and Canaanites. The reason why the Israelites were scared to death of the Canaanite and the Canaanite land, or the land of Palestine, which is what they're fighting over now, is because there were these giants. Canaanites were giants. So they're these big old people. It's like, okay, well, if you had a person as big as, like, that's not even a good example. There are very few trees out here, but like if the tree, that's a tree right there. And you can see that the cars are not, I mean, cars, what, 3, 4 feet, 5 feet, and then you have a tree. So if you had a giant that big or bigger, and he was in front of you, and he was wanting to rip off everything of you, yeah. So you'll be facing giants. You'll also be facing, I have had another dream, and it was spot in line with, if you've ever seen, was it Terminator 3, where the robots tries to take out the people, they collect the people and then turn them into stuff. There was a young girl in my dream, or a very young, like 5 or 6 year old girl that was taken, and I could see the machines, like she was on a table and the machines were about to change her into, I guess, a cyborg. But the people were running for their lives, and there was this big flipping robot that was kind of running the show. I don't know if it was male or female. My guess was male. But the robots are going to come alive, and they're going to do their own thing. And they, so yeah, that's another part of this. But, so yeah, so there's a lot of things that are going to happen in the tribulation period. And the biggest thing that you need to do in the tribulation period is never give up. If you give up and you take the mark of the beast, or if you give in to their ways and do whatever, then you will immediately go the opposite way. And part 1 of the MOB was the shot. And it's because what the shot did is it altered the DNA, which has Yahweh written in the code of your DNA. And I just saw a video this morning actually of it. But Yahweh, and what, oh, this is another cool thing. When we breathe, we actually go, Yah, or Yahweh. And so that's how we breathe. I mean, so we constantly say his name. So we go, and it's that intake is Yah, and then way is the outtake. So yeah, so we constantly say his name. And a video pointed out, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, but just because you don't take the mark of the beast, your life is going to be very difficult. So I'm going to do a series of videos on how to, I don't know, you're gonna have to be stealthy. You're gonna have to use water resources. Like there is a water right over there and all around me. But if you live away from water, it's going to be very difficult. So what you're going to have to do is find water resources. And that would be a great thing to learn right now, is where are the resources for water. Another really difficult one will be how to get food. And I've been trying to look up all these plants out here, and many of them are they are medicinal. Like this one in front of me, that which is like an off-color green. That's Russian olive. It's used medicinally, but it's not very edible. But there are cattails and stuff that you can use. But food is going to be your limitation. So you're going to have to figure out where you're going to get food. But yeah, I don't know if this is allowed, but I guess in that time it may be. But there are distribution centers. You don't go to the store, and this is what a prepper showed, is you go to the distribution centers. So you go to a commercial place and you find out where the distribution centers is, and they have all the goods. A distribution center is where it's like they get all the goods and then they export them to wherever they need to go. So that's probably where you're going to find food. Another idea is to get fishing line or make rope or something and go fishing. So that is a possibility. If you have a gun, you'll have to use it very limited. If you have a bow and arrow, that would be helpful. I've not tried it, and I guess I should. Was a bolo. It's basically a rope with a leather piece, and it's kind of like, it's what David used on Goliath. And it's like, and you sling it around, and then you let it go, and the rock flings, and it can go like really fast. David he was really good at it, so he actually got it to penetrate into the skull of Goliath and just killed him outright. And I think he chopped off his head and was like, yeah. But yeah, that's another thing you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to be stealthy during this time, but I'm going to try to make videos on all this. I just kind of wanted to do a brief introductory. But during the tribulation, if you're left behind, you may have to run from one place to another. You may have to, and you won't know who to trust. You won't know where to go. And there'll be all kinds of plagues that'll come out, because I've been shown that. There'll be all kinds of people will go after each other for all kinds of reasons. So you won't know who to trust. There may or may not be groups of people that are God followers, that have completely turned back on him, or turned back to him. I've been praying about this, but I don't know what that will look like. But yes, you will be made a spectacle for the Antichrist. Like, he's going to, like, in the old Roman times, the Christians were taken and tortured in gladiator arenas. They were put on poles, and they were mauled by lions, and they were ripped apart. They were put in arenas and basically fought to the death. They did all kinds of heinous things in gladiator arenas. And it'll be that, but worse. Other people will be, they'll break every bone in your body, and throw you into a cauldron where you'll sit there and boil alive to death. Sorry it's so graphic, but that's, and there was a thing also in one of the apocryphal books, I can't remember which one it was, but they ripped off the fingernails one by one, and then what they did is they also took iron spikes and pulled your eyes out of your sockets. It doesn't sound fun. And then they ripped off their the skin off their head. So that to me doesn't sound like fun. But living off the land may be your best bet, and you'll have to go from one place to another. One of the biggest things is where's food? Where are you going to find food in the middle of winter, and how are you going to find it? There are ways of doing stuff. If you have a bow and arrow, that will help. However, out here, the food is very limited. There have been ducks, but if you shoot an arrow into a pond, how are you going to retrieve it in the dead of winter? Because that's pretty stinking cold. There are ways that you can retrieve the arrows. But yeah, food's going to be your limitation unless you can catch fish every day. Another thing you got to be aware of is if you catch something and someone else sees that you have food, you have to be aware that they may come after you for your food and demand that you give them their food, or give them your food that you just caught. So you may have to do it in the middle of the night. You may have to go out and go fishing in the dead of night so no one else sees you. Or what you could do, another idea is you catch a fish in the pond and you bring it to the shoreline, you cook it up, eat it there, and then go home. So yeah. But the tribulation's here. You're going to have the two witnesses. You're going to have fire from heaven. There's sinful people that God's going to just take outright. They're just too far gone. God knows who he can and cannot change. He knows exactly who will turn back to him and who won't. And it may be the most heinous person out there, and they realize, okay, well, the rapture just happened, so obviously there is a God and there is all this stuff, so I need to turn back to him. So that could happen. And you may be the most religious nut out there, and then the rapture happens and you're left behind and you turn completely towards God and you basically give him the finger saying, well, screw you. It's like, well, I know that I was left behind and I thought I was doing all this good stuff, and so they just turn on God. But yes, there are birds out here for now. But you're going to have to figure out how you're going to live off the land. There are weeds and stuff in your lawn, like plantain. Dandelions are like incredibly good for you, yet everyone under the sun demands that you kill them outright. And yet we're killing one of the most nutritious things out there, which I find funny. But yeah, you're gonna, I mean, food would be a definite limitation. You may go a couple of days without food. You may have to walk to different places in order to find food. And out here, be aware, if you're out west, certain elevations have different plants. Like up at 8,000 feet, 8,000 feet, like if you go up the slope, that, by the way, is probably 10,000 feet. That's Grand Mesa. But different elevations have different foods available. So, and that's what the Utes learned, is they found which plants grew where. But yes, my idea or suggestion for you right now is to get everything you need and prepare for that time, because we are on the cusp of God taking his true, the ones that have truly given their lives to him. And those are, by the way, those are the ones that have cut out the world. Those are the ones that have done like me and made videos and word things and told people around. It's like, hey, this is coming. I've had 3 or 4 different rapture dreams or visions in the last month. So I know it's here. I've also been given dreams and visions of earthquakes and tsunamis. And we're not talking a tsunami of 10 to 50 feet. We're talking tsunamis that are about half the size of that mountain, if not all the way up, and it would just cover it. And that's caused by an asteroid that hits off the Atlantic coast, is what I've been shown. Well, what a lot of prophets have been shown, and there may be one in the Pacific as well. But that asteroid hits the crust of the earth so hard that it just majorly cracks the land and makes it come open, and then you have lava coming up and seeping through. There was a Rift Valley in Idaho, but basically it was just like a field of lava. Like as far as I could see, like this is only would be, and all this was just covered in lava. And it obviously from the it's kind of like a river, but it's like a river of lava kind of thing. But from overhead, you would be able to see, it's like, okay, well, this obviously follows a crack. But yes, and you'll also have earthquakes that are will knock you off your feet. It clearly says in the book of Revelation that all the mountains will crumble, and that the elite and other people will run to the rubble or something along that line, where it's obviously not a mountain. It's like the remnants of mountains. So yeah, but yes, you need to right now make plans for how you're going to survive. You're going to have to figure out, okay, what plants do I need to use in order to use for medicine, or do I have medicine? Do I have bandages? Do I have ways of making light? Do I have ways of making fire? Do I have ways of catching things? Do I have fishing gear? Do I have bow and arrow? And yes, this costs money. There are ways of making a bow and arrow, and maybe you're lucky. I mean, it's maybe you find one. You just never know. The resources people are going to go after, obviously, our food is a big one. And so if you have food, people are going to come after you or try to barter with you. And what I've heard kind of funny is a lot of prepper videos and other things have suggested that you have gold and silver. In the bartering system of the olden days, yes, they had gold as well, but most of the bartering items were just everyday items. The Indians traded furs. There were fur trappers, and because you could have beaver pelts and other things, and you would trade for them. So, and if you have a bar of gold and you're trying to barter, it's like, oh, well, this is a $10,000 bar of gold. It's like, well, okay, well, if you only need part of it and are trying to get something small, then how are you going to break that thing apart in order to give what is needed? So you may be desperate to the point it's like, okay, well, just take the darn thing, and you may get screwed over with how much you get for it. So, but yes, your bartering items are going to be salt, flour. They're going to be normal cooking items. They're going to be pots, pans, and that's what they did in the old days. They exchanged. It's like, okay, if you have a resource and you're getting to it, yeah, that's going to be highly valued. And most people do not know how to live off the land. They're like, okay, well, there's no way in hell that I'm going to live out of my house or whatever. And during that time, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to instantly die from plagues, from whatever. And you're going to have to be cautious what residence and wherever you enter. And there are ways of trying to find that. It's like, okay, you could spy out a place for a day or two and see if anyone's in it by seeing if there's any lights or any movement. And then it's like, okay, this place is empty, and move in. But, sorry, I've gone on and on. But yes, the tribulation is here. And for the next 7 years, depending on how quickly you exit from this world, you're going to have to fight tooth and nail. You're going to have to show God why you deserve to go into heaven. Because I don't know if, and this is a question I've posed to God, so this is something that has gone through my head. It's like, during that time, we are to pay for the sins that we have done. And those people that refuse a lot of ways of what Jesus has said, there's a lot of I would say a ton of false prophets have gotten in every part of our society and made wrong right. And if the Bible clearly says, do not do this, and you do it, you're sinning. If you've even thought of it, you're sinning. So don't think that God won't hold you accountable for your sins. He will forgive you and he is a God of mercy. He is a God of forgiveness, and he is long-suffering and all that. But he has to account for your sins of your life. And one really scary thing that came up in my mind recently, it's like, okay, because there was a scripture that referred to balances. So like that olden balance where it had the bar over the cross over the top, and then you had one tray over here and then one tray over here, and how it tilted back and forth. So what's going to happen is your good things are going to be on one side, and your bad things are going to be on the other that you've done. And this is not accounting Jesus, by the way. But what it's going to do is it's going to account for the good and bad things. If you've done a whole lot of bad things, what God's going to say is like, okay, well, I can't let you into heaven. And there's a lot of things that we claim are not, that are good, which are bad, and vice versa. There's things that we claim that are good. It's like, oh, I've been a good person. It's like, okay, well, according to who? But this balance, if you take the blood of Yeshua, or blood of, like, he's called Jesus now, which I have found completely horse crap. That came about in the 1600s by the Catholic Church, by the way. Constantine is also the one that called people Christians, and it was actually a derogatory term. So you're not a Christian. I call myself a follower of Yeshua. I call myself a disciple of the Most High God, or Yahweh. I do not call myself a Christian. Christian is, and also there are so many people out there that have given Christian a bad name. They go to church, they do whatever you think that you should do on Sunday, and then as soon as they leave, they get on their computers and do wrong things. They go smoke and drink and do everything, and screwing over everyone under their care. And God knows everything you've done. If you think that you're going to get away with anything, you're full of crap. Everything that has gone on for the last several years is now coming to light. Everything that the Rothschilds and the Carnegies and all these other people and all these elitist groups have done is now coming out. All of it's being, and God said, then the end of times, knowledge will increase, that everything will come to light. Well, everything's coming to light. There's Question Antiquity, and then I think it's Question Everything on Facebook, that, I mean, it has clearly showed Tartaria. It's clearly showed giants. It's clearly showed that there's been technologies here for hundreds of years that we're just now, oh, well, hey, look at what we did. And it's like, it's been here for a very long time. The stuff that they're showing us right now is just a prelude to the amount of stuff. Like, we're down here with the technology, and they're already way the fuck up here, and they don't want us to give us to know that they already have everything. So, but my goal is to prepare you for the coming times. And so what I'm going to try to do is, with whatever time I have left, is to get things out there to show you the plants around you, to show you water around you, to ways of thinking. I would go to prepper channels. I mean, there's quite a few out there that are really good. And they'll give you some advice and how to live and what to do. I'm no expert. I'm doing what I feel led to do. Thank you for joining me. But yeah, your number one thing right now should be going to God. I don't know if the door is completely shut. I've kind of heard rumors that maybe, but God has not taken his people home. And I would right now go to your knees and beg him for mercy and forgiving yourself and others. If you have any unforgiveness, that's a sin. You cannot have any unforgiveness in your life. And if it says don't do this and you're doing it, like in the book of Timothy and all these other letters to like the Corinthians and Colossians and all these others, it's like malice and anger and slander and joking and jesting. And I mean, if it says don't do this, then, and you're still doing it, then that's sinning. So please turn back to God right now, because if people leave this area and you're still doing the same old thing, one more thing. And yes, it is hard to turn away from this world, and I'll be the first to admit it. When I turned away in 2020, it was, I turned off the TV. I refused to watch movies anymore because I was shown that they're evil. And then as I got to Florida, I learned, as I started listening more and more to the lyrics, I was like, wow, this is really filthy, and it's an agenda being pushed behind it. All these singers that you're hearing, including a lot of the Christian singers, have signed a contract with the devil. And they got their skills and abilities straight from the devil. There's a young girl, she had blonde hair, T Swift, that's out there. Yeah, she signed a contract. Rihanna, Beyonce, all of them that are in mainstream have all signed contracts with the devil. and pretty much, I don't know if they're allowed to, but they've pretty much given a soul contract to the devil. So they're kind of screwed. But you'll have to find ways of filling that time. And what you do is you just get ready for what's coming. I mean, you can research plants that are around you that'll help you. You can research about first aid. You can try different things. Like, that's what I use to do to bide my time right now. Is I use that time to prepare for what may be. If I'm left behind, like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to live off the land, so I'm gonna have to learn how to do first aid. I'm gonna learn how to be stealthy. I'm gonna have to learn how to capture food. I'm gonna have to learn how to clean water. Where should I go? So do I have a map to get me to A to B? So you have to have these things going through your mind. Otherwise, you're kind of screwed. If you think you're going to stay in your house may burn to the ground. I mean, your house may, your neighbor's house may catch on fire. That may catch your house on fire. There may be a flood that comes along the canyon and floods out your house, and you're like, okay, well, everything that I thought I had, I have not gotten. So, so yeah, you have to prepare for all these scenarios. Like, okay, well, all my stuff is ruined, or you can make it to where your stuff is in bins or in jars, and if something happened that may be slightly wet, but at least it's still there. So thank you for joining me. Sorry it's a longish video, but there's just a lot going on. Thank you for joining me.